Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I am your host, your guide on this journey, the outfluencer, Dr. Wayne Pernell, Dr. P, also your powerful presence mentor. On today's show, we have Julie Bruns. Now, she's been doing training and development and for about a decade and a half, almost 2 decades. I'm going to grab some notes, grab my glasses so I can read some notes. She's an owner and entrepreneur she runs To Possibility and Beyond. It's the number 2, Possibility and Beyond. You can look her up. She has been in training and development, as I said. She's a podcaster, a blogger, and a soon-to-be published author. So, amazing stories come out of training and development. And, well, I would just love to welcome you, Julie Bruns. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yay, good. So, so much about this. To Possibility and Beyond really speaks to me. Just the whole idea of, we're not stuck, right? And so talk a little bit about the work you're doing, talk a little bit about how you got started. And, in everybody's journey, there is a bounce, the whole idea of one sharp sword cutting through to what matters most means that you had to cut through and you had to cut out some things too along the way. So I'd love to just have you talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and talk about some of the struggles that you've come through that might also help our audience here.
Cool. Sure. So the whole name, I'm glad it stands out to Possibility and Beyond. When we were coming out, my husband and I, with names for my business last year, I love the idea of possibility because really anything is possible, and just about anything. And if you can live your life that way, you can be pretty happy. And I used to hate it when I was younger, and people would say, you can't do that. And you won't be able to do that. It's like, why? How do you know? You don't know. So we were coming up with names, and our son, Jake, he's 22 or almost 23 now. He used to, when he was younger, he used to say, he loved Buzz Lightyear from Disney and Pixar and Toy Story movies. And he used to say, Buzz Lightyear used to say, to infinity and beyond. And we were working with Possibility, and one of the websites were out there, and we were joking, like, how about To Possibility and Beyond instead of To Infinity and Beyond? So I love the name, and it's just all encapsulating for me. So I'm glad it spoke to you.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So that journey started last year with my own business, but obviously, your journey never starts in one day. And about 4 years ago, I was in training and development. I worked for a big consulting firm, and I was doing, I managed an internal training certification program for them. And it's a virtual job, and everyone on my team was from a different city in the country and in the world, literally all over the world. I'd get off the phone and there'd be 7 people from all over the world on the call. And I used to think and say to my husband and kids, I just had a conversation with 7 people from all over the world, and I don't even know them. I get on the phone and I have no idea who they are. I'm not connecting with them. We talk business and we get off the phone. So I was looking for a way to be more connected. And I was at a conference in 2016, the fall of 2016. And she challenged us with coming up with, something we wanted to do in the world that was better. And I didn't really have this change something in the world. I liked being in training development. I thought that's just what I'm going to do. And I said, it just came to me at the last day of the conference. I thought, I really want to be more connected with people that I work with, but how am I going to do that? So I walked up to, it was a challenge that she had for us. And I walked up to one of the leaders at our company who I did not know, never met before. And I approached him, and I was about to say, we're all virtual and this is a problem. We're not connected. Like, I was about to tell him what the problem was. And in the moment I was like, no, Julie, tell him what your solution is. Tell him how you can solve this. So I said, the first thing I said was, do you think people at our company could benefit if we felt more connected? And as soon as I said the words, he looked at me and said, yes. He said yes like 3 times. And I was like, okay, now what? I said, I had this idea. Like, what if we just pick a topic? I'll do it. I'll do everything on my own. Once a month, I'll pick a topic that's universal, that speaks to everyone in our global company, any age, any gender, any race, and that's near and dear to our hearts. And I'll just pick a topic we can all connect on. And that was the beginning of my workshops. And so the first topic was connection. And I said, I'll pick a topic, I will research it, and I will invite everyone to come. And people came in droves. Like, I thought it was an accident the first time. And then the next month, hundreds of people were signing up and showing up. And people from the company were calling me saying, what are you doing to get all these people at your webinars? And I said, I'm just picking a topic that I think touches everyone. And then I'm talking about it and how we can make our lives better with it. And that's what started this whole, and I said to my husband, after I did the second one, I have to figure out a way to make this something I get paid to do every single day. And that's why I'm doing it now.
That is magical. That is absolutely magical. Who doesn't want more connection? I mean, even the introverts that I work with are like, yeah, I'm good on my own, but I still need people to push away from. Like, there's this sense of I need to be connected so that I can be on my own, right? Versus, like, there's a difference between being an introvert and being a hermit. And so everybody, extroverts definitely want that connection. It's like, reach out, please.
Right.
And we have a thing called contact need. This is a thing that primates have. We need to actually physically touch. That's where oxytocin drops happen. And, it's the cuddle hormone. It's what happens. It makes us feel good and grow. So the whole idea of connection is like, of course, yes, 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 please. Like, who doesn't want that? So good for
Right.
you. Good for you for making that
Yeah.
happen. That's awesome. And you've been doing that every single day. You've been training and out there and
So at that job 4 years ago, I said to my boss, I'm going to do these workshops, and I got the okay from the senior leader, and he's like, that's great. You can do them on your own time. You have to keep doing your job. I'm like, okay, I'll just keep doing them, and I'll just keep facilitating and training and do the other things I'm doing. And then little by little, I went to another job where I could do more of that, and I could just only develop people. So it's like, all right, well, what's my next thing? I want to just do this. So I went to a smaller company that needed lots of programs, a leadership development program, and they wanted to bring up managers and train them, and they wanted to train consultants on consulting skills. So I just started doing more and more of that developing stuff. But the core topics that I speak on now, for my employee engagement workshops, are all of those topics I spoke on first, because they're the ones I'm most passionate about, which are connection, possibility, resilience, gratitude, joy, mindfulness. So I tried to make that part of what I did, but I had to do other things too. So now it's just, those are the topics I speak on. Those are the topics in my book. And that's also what my podcast is geared towards.
what's amazing about all of that is that, this is the lesson for people that are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. It's like, what do you love? There's a passion that you have. There's something that, the question I ask is not what do you want? It's what would you treasure, right? And so really it's like, I love the idea of connection. I love the idea of resilience. I love the idea of, so all of that was brewing for you. And you're like, I just want to teach it. I just
Yep.
want to, right? And you were told, do your job. You could do this thing on the side, and you're like, cool, like, right? So
I'll just keep doing it. Yep.
you developed your entrepreneurial plan while you were in another job, and
Yes.
so many entrepreneurs do that. Um, I think the biggest lesson is be deliberate about it, right? Just know that that's going to be your path, right? If you can feel something bigger in you, know that you're going to, like, go for it and actually take it on and own it. Good. That's so
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest struggle? Like, in you know, we're in a space where, for example, at the time of this recording, we're being told, oh, well, certain employees, there are 21,000 employees that are going to be told that they are working from home, major company, right? You're working from home until for the next year,
Yeah.
right? And companies around the world are actually saying, we could probably do this remotely. So as you do training and development, and as you work toward connecting people remotely, what's the biggest struggle you're seeing, and what's the biggest struggle you personally have come through?
Um, so I would say in the last couple of years, what I've been seeing mostly, well, in the last 6 months specifically, but it goes past that, not just because of what's going on. It's the same thing. People will say, these topics you're speaking on are important, but what's the value of them? What's the money behind it? What's going to be the impact? What's going to be the trying to prove it to people? Um,
Yeah.
Without having to say, like it's not going to be, it is a dollar amount because unhappy employees are unengaged and they do all kinds of things. They leave the job sooner. There's more turnover. They're disengaged. They're dissatisfied. They're, all of those things. I'm trying to talk to people about what you can do, because when I'm doing the workshops, I give people ideas about what they can do. They're like, "Oh, that all sounds great, but how can I do it virtually?" Well, I have good news. You can do it the exact same way. You can do it the same way. You might have to be a little bit more creative, but all of the topics that will help people stay connected and engaged are all valid, whether you're sitting like we are right now talking on in a Zoom conference call, or you're sitting across a conference table, or you're sitting in a coffee shop. They apply to everything. And once people understand that, they're more open to it. It also will be, I'll notice that, I'll talk about meditation and mindfulness. And if I were to say, come to my meditation webinar, people might be like my husband would be one of them. I don't think so. Like, first of all, how's that going to apply to my sales job? And how's that going to make me more money? And how's that? But when I did a workshop recently in June on the avoiding multitasking and what it does to your brain. Well, people came to that and it was all about mindfulness and meditation and what it actually physically does to your brain to help it when you're not multitasking. And I had one of the gals who came to the workshop email me and said, I never would have come to this workshop if you had called it meditation and mindfulness. And I would have been turned off by that and I wouldn't have cared. And she's like, and now that I know what you taught me, she got the app I recommended. I just recommended an app that I use. And she's like, I'm going to start doing it because I can't believe the impact on my brain and my body and then my life eventually that it could have. So it's trying to convince people, not convince, but just trying to let them know why this is so beneficial and how it can impact everything they do, not just their work, but their lives, their everyday regular lives. So that's probably been the biggest challenge in the last, several months. People know they need it, but they don't, it's like not top of mind to them because they're like, we have to fix all these other things. It's like, no, but if you fix some of this, it will fix those other things. So
Right.
if you
We're so busy putting out fires that we forget that there's actually a
Mhm.
base or a root for them.
Yeah.
What you said is really important at two levels. And one is, how do you couch or phrase, or what do you call the program that you're offering, right?
Hmm.
Because you don't call it the thing, you call it
Hmm.
the outcome of the thing, right?
Hmm.
So it's not the we're going to do meditation and mindfulness. It's the how to become more productive when everything else is on fire, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's awesome, because
Yeah. The
people want to
outcome.
know,
Yep.
right? People want to
Yep.
know that. And then at the second level is the thing, which is mindfulness, right? That breath,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
ability to just step back, having a broader perspective gives you the opportunity to put everything in the place that it belongs, and for you to handle what matters and to cut out what doesn't. And that is magical, because so many people are on the go, on the go, on the go, on the go. And the new statistic is that we are working now between 11 and 14 hours a day.
Wow.
And so to be able to take a breath deliberately, right, and go, in order to be more effective, right? Because you're not effective.
Yes.
Being busy isn't just, isn't
Yeah,
equated to being effective, right?
that's right.
So in
Yep.
order to be more effective, we do need to take a breath. We do need
Yep.
the perspective. We need to look internally and we need to look externally. And oh, awesome. Good work.
And it's funny you said perspective, because my book that I'm writing about all these topics is called Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective. And that's because peace is what I want myself to feel, and I want everyone else to feel peaceful and content and happy doing work they love, but also the possibilities of anything you can possibly think of. And then perspective, looking back and looking forward. And like you said, just the whole picture of what am I creating? How can I get there? Stepping back and reflecting. Yeah, I love that word perspective. And it's obviously it's harder to have. It's you don't have it when you're 20 or 25. Usually have it when you're 50, like me. Or you can have it in all parts of your life, but that's such an important piece of it. So yeah, that's the name of my book.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Peace, possibility, perspective.
Yep.
It's interesting. My very first book over my shoulder here is called Choosing Your Power. Choosing Your Power. It came out 7 or 8 years ago, and in the preface, I talk about um, helping people find their missing piece, and I spelled it PEACE, right?
Mm. Ooh,
And
I love that.
right, and so some people wrote to me, and they were like, there's a typo, and I'm like, that's deliberate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Find your
right?
missing piece. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
I really want people to find their missing piece because we are so on the go and trying to be so much for so many other people. It's like, no, no, land right in yourself. The stronger you are as a human who operates in alignment with their current values, the better you can serve other people, right? That's part of, I have this powerful presence program that I teach, right? So that's part of that is landing smack in your values and showing up aligned. And that's how you find your missing piece. So I'm looking forward to your book, Peace, Possibility,
Possibilities, and
Perspective.
yeah,
Love it.
possibilities and perspective.
Love it.
When you ask that question, I love the question you ask about what do you treasure. And
Yeah.
when I think about what I treasure, it does bring me peace. That's the, like you said, that's the inside. You're like inside your body. When you think about what you treasure, you're like, and then you get this breath of like, ooh, it would be this, and usually this is
Yeah.
bringing you peace. Yeah, I love that.
What's cool about that is that when you do that exercise and you go, I don't know, no, it's not what do I want, it's what would
Mm-hmm.
I treasure, and you do get that kind of feeling. You can envision it, you can feel it, and as soon as that happens, that's the alignment. That's what alignment feels like, right? Is the
Awesome.
oh, and when that happens, you actually start to bring it to you, right?
Yeah,
You tear away the veil so that you can see through this fog that you've put in front of yourself.
yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. What so we've talked about where you came from, we've talked about where you're headed. Talk a little bit about your current, like what's the biggest thing that you are struggling to get through, and what lessons are coming out of that for our audience? Like, what can other people learn from the path that you've taken?
Oh gosh. So I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. In fact, I I actually was the opposite. Like, I don't want to be my own boss. I don't want to have my own company. I just want to go do work that's important,
Yeah,
and that's valuable and that's purposeful. And I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it the way I wanted to do it. And that's when I had my light bulb moment last year and thought, I have to create it myself. I kept trying to find the perfect job, and my husband would give me a hard time, like, honey, I know you want to be happy doing work you love, but there's not a perfect job. That's why they call it a job, because it's work. And I'm like, I don't mind work. I love it's hard work is fine with me, but I want to do something important that I love doing, that I'm good at. And um, I came back from another conference last year in April, and I just had this light bulb moment. Like, you're never going to find the perfect job because you have to create it. And it was
that's
like
huge. That's huge.
huge. huge. You're not going to find it, Julie. You know, you've been looking for it since you graduated college, and then you got a master's degree, and I kept going for like, what's going to give me the perfect everything I want when I get there. And then I'd get there and my husband would say, let me guess, there's someone you don't like there. Let me guess, there's a boss. You know, there's always something about it. And there's something about it because it's not what I created and it's not what I picked. You know, it wouldn't be 100%. I'm not saying it's not hard work, but now everything I'm doing, so I have 3 parts to my business, and one is writing every day so I can finish my book. And the meat of it is connecting with people so that I can get clients that buy my programs and my workshops. And then the other small percentage, probably 10 or 20%, is my podcast and connecting with people to be on my podcast. But my podcast is like that was a side, that was something that I thought about like at the last minute. I reached out to someone I read a story about, and I'm like, oh, I can have this too while I'm doing the workshops and everything else. So the podcast is actually feeding my content and what I write about every week in my blog. But the great news is everything we're talking about on the podcast ends up being stuff that I would write about anyways. So the struggle really is the getting my name, not even getting my name out there. Just, you know, I love what I'm doing. I've done a ton of research. I've done these workshops for 4 years now. I'm writing about them all the time. It's connecting with people that would love the programs I have in their companies. That's been my biggest challenge because I don't have a sales mindset, because I just usually I would go out and fill a role that somebody already had for me, and then I would do the work. But now I know what the work I want to do is, but now I have to go find it instead of just showing up and saying, tell me what you want me to do and I'll do a great job. I'm already doing a great job. I just have to go find people that want what I have.
This is huge. So for those that are looking at entrepreneurship, for those that have stepped into it, at some point you decide. At some point you decide that, you know what, I've been a good number 2 for a really long time. I'm great in a support role, but I'm bigger than this. I want the acknowledgement that goes beyond this. I'm waiting for someone else to tell me I'm good enough. And now you look in the mirror and you go, some days I love my boss, and some days I'm not so sure, right? Because when you're looking in the mirror, it's all you. It's all you. And that's fabulous. That's really, that's a big deal. Like when I took that step, because, you know, in my history, I've worked collaboratively with the CEOs and such that I was under. And along the way, I was also building my business. So Dynamic Leader's been around since, well, it incorporated a while ago, but almost 30 years of doing my own business, up until I actually incorporated. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, I was building my brand and building my biz, and then it was like, oh, it's a real biz, right? So I've been doing it outside of any job that I held for almost 30 years. So I worked internally at Whole Foods Market. They actually found me because I was consulting with them. Worked internally at AAA. Worked internally at I ran a psychiatric hospital, and all the
Uh-huh.
while, right? So I was in executive positions in multiple different companies. I mean, the list is long over the past 3 decades, 3.5 decades.
Yeah.
Um, and all the while, I was building my brand, and finally went, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to be just me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, the whole point of that is doing what you just said, which is, you know, you just decide, right, that it's like you are a good number 2, second in line, you know, having a boss that tells you what to do. And now it's like, no, I want to do so much more. when
Yeah.
that ache when that ache to do more makes you cross that line to, okay, the only way to do more is to own my own business and to do it
Just,
fully.
yeah, take the leap. I said to my husband, but when I was doing all this, because my whole plan was to do it in April, May, and then all this COVID stuff hit. And I said, I'm still going to do it. And he was like, oh, maybe. I'm like, honey, it's not. I said, I know how to be a really good employee. I've been a really good employee my entire working career. So I know how to work hard for other people. What I don't know how to do is I don't know if I can be my own boss and have my own company. I know I can always go back to that. What I don't know is if I can do this, and I have to find out if I can do this. And I don't want to start when I'm 65 and wondering, can I do this? can I do this has to happen now, and then I'll know, and I'll never have to have any regrets.
Yeah.
My father died with a major regret that he never got his idea out into the world, and he just lamented about it forever. And he was that's the one biggest regret he's ever had. He said he would trade everything he had in his life to get this thing off the ground that he never did. And he was 77 when he died. But I said to my husband, I'm not going to be that person. And I'm not, and waiting longer is not going to make it any easier, and now I have the energy, and I can take the risk. And if it's a risk, but it's worth taking, and instead of laying on your deathbed wondering, what if I had just, because that's what people regret. So
That's so great. What a great reminder, right? So
yeah.
so do it, step in. I won't know until I do it is a great kind of you know, it's a model, right? I
Mhm.
must do it in order to find out.
Yep.
And what's the worst that happens? You're no worse off
Yep.
because the truth is you can always go back and work for somebody else, right?
Yep.
Working for yourself is actually a practice,
Yeah.
right? Becoming your own boss is actually a practice because you have to lock in your schedule. There are certain things that you're tracking, there are certain metrics you want to meet. And that's amazing. It's really fabulous. How do you feel? Like you've been doing it for a little bit. How do you feel?
So yeah, my sister was asking me that like the first couple of weeks. I'm like, it's liberating. I've never in my life. I've worked since I was 14 years old. I paid for everything I've ever bought myself. I came from a really big family, and we didn't have much. So I've been earning my paycheck for 40 years, right? So it's weird not to have someone just paying me for the work I'm doing, which is always where I found my value, right? Instead, I will have that, but not having a steady thing, just saying, okay, you worked hard and now you have this at the end. It's like you worked hard and you might not have anything, but you have to keep going for it.
Yes.
And you have to keep believing in what you're doing. You have to get up every day. Like you said, it's a practice. And I've been very disciplined. And I wasn't afraid of that either because I've always been a hard worker. I do the same thing I always did. I start work at 8, I stop at 5, 6. Now it's usually later, like you were saying. But I love it. And I'm not going to slow down what I'm doing. I just have to figure out how to work smarter, not harder. Because I know it's not about the hours I'm putting in.
Right.
It's about how I'm spending my time.
So there's, yeah, a couple of things about that, right? When you do own your own business, because you love what you do, working longer hours, it doesn't feel like work. And so it's
Right.
sort of like, yeah, I'm working all the time, but I'm not working, right? It's like I'm
Right.
in mine all the time. And even on weekends, and it's like it's almost like an ache when I put it away. At the same time, it's important to do that, right? It's
Right.
important to back to perspective. It's important to do that. The other piece is that you start to schedule what's important, and you start to learn um, how to manage, and that you do it all for a specific purpose, right? The whole thing that gets me up in the morning, and I'm sure that drives you, it's not that I have a schedule, it's from 8 to 5, that's when I work.
Right.
That's not what gets anybody up in the morning. I work from
Right.
8 to 5 doesn't get
Right.
people out of bed.
Right.
Knowing that you're making a difference, knowing that the lives that you're touching, that your message is making a difference, that's what gets you up.
Right.
And so it doesn't, for our audience that's listening or watching this, the whole point I think here is to know that whatever role you play, whatever job you're in, whether you own your own business or you're in a position with a different company, awesome. Keep your purpose in front of you. That's what's going to drive you.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. 100%.
Any other comments you want to make? Any sort of closing comments and or where people can contact you kind of stuff?
Um, so the whole point behind the whole intention of my podcast is called the Peace and Possibilities Podcast. I interview people that love the work they do. And I do that because I didn't have a ton of people around me when I was younger and figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, that loved what they did or that were mentoring me or guiding me in any way. And I just so desired that. And that's why I created it for myself. So I love hearing the stories, but I want people that are 25, 30, 35, 50, to hear stories about people that figured it out, whether they're an entrepreneur or they're just in a great job that they love. Doesn't matter if they have their own business or not, but they're loving what they're doing and they're staying happy and peaceful along the way because of all of these things, that they described. So the whole point is you can be happy doing work you love at any age. And you're not supposed to just go to work every day, go to the grind, be in the grind, bring home a paycheck, be miserable, and just do it over so you can retire at 60 and then be unhappy because you've been unhappy for the last 40 years married to someone like it all goes hand in
Yes.
hand. And it doesn't have to be that way. And anyone that's telling you that is wrong. And I just want people to know that sooner rather than later, so they don't have to wake up at 50 like me and go, oh, I can create what I want. I mean, if I had thought about creating what I wanted 20, 25 years ago, who knows where I'd be? I'll still get there. Just take me a little bit longer. But I want to prevent not necessarily the pain, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you have stories about people that have done it. So if
Yeah.
you don't have one around you, keep looking for them because they exist. And they're proof that you can do exactly what you were talking about. You can figure it out and be purposeful every day.
That's awesome. Julie Bruns waving the proof that you can do what you want. It's awesome. I love it. I love it when we challenge old conventions of, you have to find a job, you have to stick with a job, love it or don't love it. You're in that job. This is your path. Um, and you're supposed to get married at a certain age. You're supposed to have, a dog and 2.2 kids. And like, you know what? It's your life. You design it, and designing it too early is not great. It's like none of us would take advice from an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old even about here's your life path. You get on this life path and you stick with it. And it's like, so why at 18 or 20 would we think that this was the path to get
Right.
on and stick with? So really to find a passion and to explore it. And if
Yes.
that turns out not to be a full passion and that you actually find another passion along the way, that's normal. Just to recognize
Totally,
that's normal,
totally
right?
normal. And I
Yeah.
think it's Tony Robbins that says you create your life, not you managing your life. And I've
Yeah.
always thought of it as I think I've just been I had 2 kids. I went to college. We raised a family and worked, but managing my life, I felt like I was managing my life for a long time. I never really thought about creating what I wanted. I have a marriage that I want. We have kids that we, mentored and guided and all of that by choice. But I always felt like we're just managing everything. We're not creating what we want. And it's nice to be in that position now with our
That's
younger
huge.
one being 18. It's like we can create what we want. What are the rules? We make the rules.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That part's huge. What are the rules? We make the rules.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I ask the question, what would you treasure? Not what do you want, right? Because if you go for what you want, you're going to be at the whim probably of what someone else tells you you should want. A
Mm.
certain car, a certain house, a certain clothing, certain
Yeah.
income. And it's like, well, what would you really treasure? What would your life be like if you followed the path of this is my interest, this is my passion, I plant this garden and I tend to it and I grow it, and it's on purpose. It's not managing it for someone
Right.
else's goods, right? So good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah. So people can find me at the Peace and Possibilities podcast, or my website is the number 2 possibilityandbeyond.com. And there's a blog there, and they can read about all the people that I've interviewed and get to my podcast there, or just see my weekly newsletter, and they can sign up for it and check me out.
All right, Julie Bruns, Peace and Possibilities podcast. The Peace and Possibilities podcast, and uh right, the number 2, right,
Yeah.
as part of your right 2 possibility and beyond.
Yep.
Awesome.com, right?
Yep.
Julie Bruns, thank you for being with me today.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Yay. All right, this is One Sharp Sword. I'm Dr. Wayne Pernell, Dr. P. Thanks for listening in, for watching. I've been and am your outfluencer and powerful presence mentor. All right, we'll see you here next time. Thanks for tuning in.